They buffed us again. They did it. They've made deep wounds less lame. You see, before, deep wounds had a little problem. Let's talk about that little problem. For some people, like the rank 1 warrior on Gamu, it's a big problem. You see, he had 9k damage on deep wounds, which is about 2/3 of his damage. But there's something wrong here. We see he only got 7 ticks. That's 21 seconds of ticking, but the fight's 55 seconds. What's going on? And these ticks they're pretty big. I really wish there was more of them. Let's see, how much does he crit during the fight? Well, it looks like in the first 10 seconds, he gets like 10 crits. So I think it's safe to say that he's critting all the time. But why aren't there more deep wounds ticks then? And that's pretty easy to actually explain. It's that every time deep wounds gets refreshed from another crit, it delays the next time it ticks by 3 seconds. So we'll see, look, there's a deep wounds tick here at 7.769 seconds. And this means at 4.7 whatever, there was a crit. Let's go. And we see, yeah, there was a crit there. Then 3 seconds went by and the deep wounds was able to tick. So if there's no more crits, we'd expect at 10.7 there to be a deep wounds. Let's check 10.7. Hey, there's no deep wounds. Was there a crit we went over? Yeah, there was. Okay, look, so there's a crit here at 8.6. So let's check 11.6. Is there a deep wounds? Oh, there's not, because we had another crit. Okay, let's see. 11.3. Let's check 14.3. Is there a deep wounds? No, there's not. Okay, so we got another crit. You see how this keeps happening over and over again, and it delays the ticks. Now, let me prove to you it doesn't work this way in Wrath. It's really easy. These are the deep wounds ticks for Alando. Notice how they're like all the time. 3 seconds, 4.5, 6 seconds, 7.5, 10.5. That's weird. That one jumped 3 seconds. But needless to say, it's all the time. It's constantly. If it got delayed 3 seconds after a crit, he would never get any, because this is his total damage log. And everywhere where there's an asterisk is a crit. So let's see. In the first 1.5 seconds, he crits 1. In the first 2 seconds, he crits twice. In the first 3 seconds, he's gotten 3 crits. In the first 5 seconds, he's gotten 5 crits. He picks up another 3 in the 3 seconds. Yeah, okay, so this guy is averaging a crit a second. All right, if you're averaging a crit a second, but you need to wait 3 for deep wounds to tick, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know you get literally 0 ticks of deep wounds. So we can easily see that deep wounds does not have the same problem in Wrath as it did in Sod. But how is this fix going to work? Well, basically, it's going to make it so that way, instead of deep wounds stacking back into itself, it's like you just run all the deep wounds in parallel. So let's say that at the 1 second mark, you get a crit. Well, what that means is that at the 4 second mark, you're going to have a fourth of, we'll say deep wounds not, because I'm a jerk. Deep wounds not. So we get, at the 4th second, we take whatever the deep wounds not value is, and we divide it by 4. And we'd apply this number at 7 seconds, 10, and 13 also. There you go. Now, what happens if we also get a crit, we could say at the second mark. So it's second 2, we get another crit. Well, if it was like before, we'd have to delay all these. And so you'd only have the first tick at 5. But that's cringe, and Blizzard has saved us from ourselves. So instead, what'll happen is that now we'll get to spawn, instead of deep wounds not, we'll have deep wounds 1. Ooh, and so then at 5 seconds, we can tick out the deep wounds 1. So it'd be deep wounds 1 divided by 4. And then at 8 seconds, again, and at 11, and at 14, it would tick. And so these are actually, they're not shown on your character panel or on the mobs panels, but it's like you have separate independent dots. So now the only way you lose damage from deep wounds is if you get a crit in the final 12 seconds of the fight, like you can lose damage. So let's go look at this Gamu for the number 1 guy, and we'll see where he got his last crit. So the last crit is at 51 seconds. So that's 5 seconds before the boss died. So we could safely say only 1 tick of deep wounds could possibly happen after this point. Where was the crit before that? If the crit before that was before the last 12 seconds of the fight, then we're guaranteed all of its damage was dealt. Let's see, where is that crit? The last crit, besides the very last one, was at 42.7 seconds. So if the boss dies at 54 seconds or later, you get 100% of the deep wounds. So Mia here would have had all the deep wounds damage from the second to last crit. On the last crit, it happens with only 5 seconds until the boss dies. That's here with the overpower. What this means is that he would lose 75% of the damage caused from this final crit because the boss is dead at 55. So the only opportunity this gets to crit or tick is at 54.3. So we can very easily prove here that 3/4 of the last instance of deep wounds will be wasted. But the good news is that that's not actually a very big number, because we can go look at this Lady Cereves kill, and we can see that after getting just 2 crits early game, the first deep wounds comes in at 237. So that means one of these crits, if you split the difference, it's about 120 per tick. So we can say with Mia's gear, you get 120 times 4 every time you crit. Okay, so he would have gotten one of these 120s on the Gamu. So he would have lost about 360 damage on this fight. Remember, he wasted a lot more than that, about 4k before this change comes in. So the delta there is almost a 3.5k damage increase. Kind of wild that you can be number 1 at something and still be doing 20% less damage until a patch comes out. This guy's going to do a lot of DPS.